Okay, so we can start. I'm gonna have a little opening speech, then I will let you do the rest of it. First of all, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to session. Thank you for all joining us today in this online session. My name is Sıla. I'm an undergraduate student at Ankara University, Department of Psychology. I will be moderating this session. And it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Professor Roberto Andorno. If I cannot say well your name, you can warn me. Professor Andorno is an associate professor of bioethics and biomedical law at University of Zurich. His work focuses on bioethics, human rights, and the ethical aspects of emerging technologies. He has contributed to international organizations such as UNESCO and has been involved in the development of important global bioethic guidelines. He has also published extensively in the field and authored numerous articles and books on bioethics and law. Professor Andorno will be giving a speech about protecting the mental sphere from the misuses of neurotechnologies. We are honored to have us with today. Without further, I would like to invite him to begin his presentation.
Thank you, Sila, for the invitation. I'm pleased to give this talk. I've been working on this topic of neuro rights, human rights, and neurotechnologies for some years, and I'm always pleased to talk about this. So I will start with mentioning a novel that you may know, which is 1984. It's a science fiction novel that describes a totalitarian state personified by the big brother that observes everything, monitors everything in society. The two main characters in the novel are Winston and Julia, who conspire against this totalitarian state, but they don't know that their movements and their thoughts have been monitored by Big Brother. Then they are arrested finally, and then only then they realize that their most intimate thoughts has been monitored by the authorities. And in the final pages of the novel, Winston is tortured, and the torturer tells him that he knows exactly what he's thinking at that precise moment and reproduces his inner monologue word by word. Well, this is a novel, this is science fiction, this is literature, but we're not so far away from this. Many experts, neuroscientists, admit that we are already able to read thoughts, mental states. This is a paper by Rafael Juste, who is a Spanish neuroscientist working in the US at Columbia University in New York. So we are already able, using in particular functional magnetic resonance imaging, to read, between quotation marks, of course, read thoughts, as I will mention later. This, of course, raises many serious ethical and legal issues. First of all, I'd like to mention very quickly the double interaction between neurotechnologies and our brain. So these technologies can be used for two very different purposes. One is to more passive way, which is to read brain data, to read neural data through brain scans. And the other way is more active which consists in writing on the brain. That is to modify or to alter some data or to improve some brain functions, etc., etc. This is done through different forms of brain stimulation, invasive or non-invasive, etc. There are very different forms. And these two possibilities create new important ethical and legal issues. In the first case, it's about privacy. So the first way, so reading brain data. What is at stake is mental privacy. In the second case, what is more at stake is freedom, self-determination, mental self-determination, personality that could be changed through these technologies. So there is a big role to here for the law, for human rights law to play. But before entering into the risks or challenges posed by neurotechnologies, I'd like to mention that, of course, these technologies offer new extraordinary tools for the diagnosis and therapeutic therapy, of neurological conditions. They are used also for rehabilitation of patients with neurological conditions. The technology that I mentioned earlier, fMRI, aims to measure brain activity by taking pictures of the brain in action, of the brain areas during that are activated, if you like, during different mental tasks, thinking of this or that, remembering something, etc., etc. So mental states. This technique is used to identify critical functional areas that are responsible for instance, speech, movement, etc., which is important when planning brain surgeries to avoid those particular areas. It's also used to monitor disease progression, for instance, after a stroke or in cases of dementia, etc., also for research purposes. But the same technology allows some form of mind reading, thoughts reading. Why or how? Because it identifies the correlation. It's not that the thoughts as such can be read, of course, they are immaterial, but these brain scans identify the correlation between brain activity, how the brain is activated, where, in which way, etc. Correlation between that and mental states, thoughts, memories, wishes, etc., etc. So indirectly, there is a form of mind reading. This same technology is used as a more efficient lie detection procedure than the old polygraph that was based only on external elements, like, for instance, the blood pressure or the nervosity of the person, or how the individual reacts to different questions, etc. And this polygraph is not really accurate at all. So, but the fMRI goes to the source of the lie, which is the brain. So in this way, it's much more accurate. There are many other neurotechnologies that serve therapeutic purposes, like deep brain stimulation that it's used for patients with Parkinson's disease, for instance. This is an invasive procedure with an electrode inserted deep into the brain that delivers some electrical charges in a particular area of the brain, the tremors that characterize Parkinson's disease are reduced, significantly reduced. Some experts argue that there is a side effect of DBS, which is that some alterations in personality could happen or happen in some cases. Different forms of brain-computer interface that allow, for instance, patients that are completely paralyzed to communicate with the external world just by thinking. Also paralyzed individuals, tetraplegic individuals could walk again using exoskeletons. These were developed here in Switzerland, in Lausanne. So just by thinking, they can move, they can walk. You see, these are really extraordinary, fantastic possibilities offered by neurotechnologies. Outside the medical domain, some of these devices are used for consumers, by consumers, and you can buy them on the market to monitor your brain waves, your mental states, your mental well-being, etc., or even to enhance your concentration capacities, etc. Although it's very much discussed, this is very much discussed. The efficacy of these tools for neuro enhancement are not very accurate so far, but they are on the market. Well, so you can buy these devices that, based on the old electroencephalogram that measures the electric waves in the brain. This same procedure has been used or proposed in different sectors, in education, for instance. There was some years ago, there was a study in China with students in schools so they were asked to use these headsets, to wear these headsets, and based on EEG, electroencephalogram, and the teacher could monitor whether the students were paying attention or not to the lessons, etc. This is something that creates some issues, of course. The same in the workplace, for instance. Oh, I forgot. I think I removed a slide here. Yeah. The same in China. It's been used in the workplace, so workers are required to wear a headset or a helmet that has a EEG inside, and the manager can monitor whether they are paying attention to their work, to what they're doing, or whether they are suffering from some anxiety, depression, stress, etc., etc. This happens not only in China. This happens in many countries. Nita Farhani is a law professor in the US, and she published this excellent book, The Battle for Your Brain, Defending the Right to Think Freely in the Age of Neurotechnology. And she points out that there's a company, I think it's an Australian company, Smart Cap Technologies, that has sold these same devices all over the world. It's not only in China, all over the world. Many companies are also asking their workers to use these helmets, and in some particular areas that were more risky activities like construction or trucking, aviation, railway, etc., etc. As you can imagine, this raises again issues about privacy. Why should the company know that you are under pressure or depression, or suffering from a depression, or etc., etc., or detect some particular health condition, mental health condition that you may have, etc. Issue of an issue of privacy. Precisely considering this issue, I published some years ago a paper to analyze this particular use of electroencephalogram to monitor brain waves of workers. Under what condition this could be allowed? I admit that there could be situations in which this is beneficial for the workers themselves in a dangerous work where they need to be concentrated. It's in their interest to use these devices. But if it's only in order to increase the company's profit, I don't think that this is ethically and legally acceptable. So in that article, we try to put some conditions for the use of these devices in the workplace. It's online, so new technologies, brain scans in particular, have been proposed also in order to predict reincidence, so to predict whose individuals who have been in prison for some years, when they are free again, whether they will commit crimes again, in order to decide who should leave prison, or who are still dangerous for society, etc., etc. So this brain scans, in this case is fMRI, has been proposed to determine that. This is of course problematic for different reasons. This is the scientific article that proposed the use of fMRI as a potential neurocognitive biomarker for persistent antisocial behavior. So this is the conclusion of the study. This is problematic, of course, because the brain scans can only show probabilistic data. They cannot guarantee that those individuals who have a lower activity in that frontal part of the brain, which is responsible for self-control, that those individuals will commit crimes. The results of the study are only a generalization based on a number of cases that were analyzed, but you cannot conclude or draw conclusions for a particular individual. Brain scans have also been proposed to detect terrorists. That was the title of this article published in Nature 20 years ago. That was immediately after the attack to the Twin Towers in New York. But the title is misleading. Of course, you cannot detect terrorists with brain scans. But if you read the article, in fact, fMRI was proposed as a lie detector here. So indirectly, if you ask, what the authors suggest is, by asking questions to these individuals who are suspected of planning a terrorist attack. Using fMRI as a lie detector, you can determine who are telling the truth or who are lying. So it's misleading. So it's important to be careful about what is really the case. But it's not only about reading minds, but as I mentioned, it's also about modifying the brain, modifying neural activity, in principle for therapeutic purposes, but also outside the medical domain. It has been also proposed as a way to modulate, to manipulate the brain. So that is as a new form of brainwashing. In this case, is the technology used was transcranial magnetic stimulation. Targeting specific areas of the brain, it was possible to make participants more positive towards, more positive towards criticisms of their own countries. So more passive individuals, to make them more passive. Or using the same technique, it was possible to enhance religiosity of those individuals. So you see, this is concerning. It's a matter of concern. This possibility in a totalitarian or authoritarian state that could be used this technique to make people more passive or etc. So to change their ideas. Well, so you see, on the one hand, we have all these very positive therapeutic diagnostic procedures, but we have also some serious risks to mental privacy, to mental freedom of thought, etc., etc. This is why there's a need of rules in this area, ethical rules and legal rules. With my colleague Marcello Jenka, I proposed reformulation of human rights, the need to develop human rights, to expand human rights norms to cover all these new areas, new challenges for mental privacy and for mental freedom in general. We proposed these 4 rights, freedoms: cognitive liberty or cognitive freedom, which means self-determination, so that we should have our freedom to think whatever we want, or have our own ideas and govern our own behavior, which is very much related to freedom of thought, which is one of fundamental freedoms in any democratic society. And then, based on that principle of cognitive liberty, we proposed the recognition of a right to mental privacy. That is, that our mental data, brain data, neural data, if you like, are not disclosed, are not disseminated to other people, to the state, to other people, to employers, etc. At least not without your free consent. Then we proposed also a right to mental integrity, which is more about, not about privacy, but about preventing harm to your psychological condition based, so harm produced by any of these devices, because they can be harmful also to your mental health. So to preserve that dimension also. And finally, we proposed also the recognition of a right to what we called psychological continuity, which is a right to your own identity, to preserve your own personal identity that could be potentially altered, modified by some of these devices. So that was our proposal. Then there was a debate, academic debate about these rights, how they should be defined. Each of them was very important. Yeah, a serious, extensive debate on this. And the so-called neuro rights. So they were called like that, neuro rights. And more recently, some international or regional organizations were involved also in these discussions and developed some reports, recommendations, declarations, etc., to offer a kind of normative framework to regulate these issues. So they produce what is called soft law instruments. Soft law because they are not legally binding. They are like recommendations to states. Among the organizations that were involved, more actively involved in this area, I can mention first of all UNESCO, that has just a few months ago adopted a recommendation on the ethics of neurotechnology. The United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva, in Europe, the Council of Europe, which is an organization with headquarters in Strasbourg, in France, which is responsible for the promotion of human rights in Europe. And it's also now interested in neurotechnology, so the impact that these technologies may have on human rights. Last year, I had the opportunity to, or I would say, I was invited by the Council of Europe to prepare a report on the impact of neurotechnology on human rights in Europe. So the central question is whether the existing human rights law is sufficient to deal with these issues, or whether there are some gaps, and there's some need for regulations, for specific regulations in this area. If you're interested in this, the report is also online. I must mention that Turkey is a member of the Council of Europe. Well, I made some recommendations at the end of the report. Now, this is in Europe. At the level of more global level, we have UNESCO, which is the United Nations Educational, Science and Culture Organization, that also is very active in this area of the ethics, bioethics in general, and in recent years, the ethics of neurotechnology. The organization has a long experience in dealing with bioethical issues. It has already produced different declarations on genetics, for instance, and human rights, and also a recommendation on the ethics of artificial intelligence. It has also an international bioethics committee since 1993. And that committee also developed a report on the ethics of neurotechnology a few years ago. And based on that, then it was decided to develop a normative document, a recommendation on the ethics of neurotechnology. So the Director General of UNESCO appointed a group for doing that work, a group composed by 24 scholars from different countries and disciplines. And I had the opportunity to be member of this group, and the task consisted in preparing a draft recommendation on the ethics of new technology. We met in 2 years ago at the headquarters of UNESCO in Paris for starting this work, and we finalized a draft recommendation. You see there in this picture, you can see to my left, this French neuroscientist, Hervé Nevis, and to his left, Nita Farahani, the legal scholar that I mentioned before from the US, and some other colleagues there from Marcello Jenka and other people who are experts in this area. So we produced a draft recommendation, and finally that was submitted to the member states of UNESCO. And finally, in November of last year, the recommendation was adopted. It's the first global normative document in this area. It's online also. So the document acknowledges, on the one hand, the potential, the positive aspects of new technologies, especially in the medical area, but it also considers that new technologies raise important ethical, legal, and societal issues related to human dignity and human rights, such as autonomy, privacy, mental integrity, personal identity, freedom of thought, and risk of discrimination, the so-called neuro-discrimination, so a new form of discrimination based on your cognitive capacities or concentration levels, etc., etc. The document proposes values to be taken into account, such as human dignity, human rights, fundamental freedoms, human health and well-being, which should be the priority of these technologies. Peace and fairness in society also should be, because there is also research in the military sector in this area to enhance the capacity of soldiers, or reduce empathy of soldiers in war, in combat. This also has to be considered from an ethical and legal perspective, of course. Different principles that should be taken into account: beneficence and non-maleficence, so that this technology should be primarily used for, as I said, for medical purposes, to promote human well-being and to without causing harm. Another principle is autonomy or self-determination, the requirement of informed consent for the use, freedom of thought, the protection of neural data, mental privacy, which are so closely related to our personality. This is why they deserve to be protected, to be labeled as sensitive data in the laws on personal data protection, the protection of personal identity, etc., etc. There are other principles about discrimination, preventing discrimination, the best interest of the child, because some of the potential users of these technologies are children or elderly people, so more vulnerable people. They deserve special protection. Well, I finished with that. So now the recommendation has to be implemented at the domestic, at the national level. So states has a responsibility now to consider whether their internal legislation is updated, is sufficient, is adapted to deal with this new challenges. So that's where we are now with this document from UNESCO. Well, with that, I finish. Thank you for your attention. If you want to discuss, I'm available to discuss or to answer questions. Thank you.
We're really thankful for this presentation. It was really valuable and productive for me too. And we have a question from one of our audience. I can share it if you're okay with it.
Of course.
They said, do you think that soon the police of the FBI might use this neurological technology on suspects to narrow their list of possible suspects in crime investigations, especially the most urgent ones like serial killings or developing their profiling data? If yes, how soon do you think this might be possible? They asked this.
Yeah, that's a big question. It's still unclear. It's unclear because it depends on the law of each country. But in the US, there is a proposal to legislate in this area, but it's still not a law. So some people argue that in the case of individuals who are suspected of having committed a crime or planning a crime, etc., the use of a brain scan could be or should be allowed. I think we have to be very careful with that. I don't think I'm not saying that this should be totally prohibited, but at least there should be serious reasons for that. There should be, I think, a judge must be involved in authorizing the use of these technologies because you are invading the mental privacy of an individual, and the individual may be in some way how to say incriminate himself. You know that there is a principle in law that nobody can be obliged to incriminate himself or herself. So now that was already applied to declarations. You know that when someone is arrested, you may have seen in films or in series, they are told you have the right to remain in silence or not to say anything that could incriminate yourself. So that was about declarations that you may have. But here it's not about the declaration, it's about your thoughts. This way, it's not clear. It's not clear. We don't know yet. We don't know yet if this could be used by the police or under what conditions it could be used. This has to be developed by the national legislation.
Thank you. And I have a personal question. If it's too much personal, I'm sorry for that. But I want to know that what leads you to like bioethics and like this kind of stuff from law. Because like I'm studying psychology and ethics is also really important for me. And this presentation was so valuable and like enlightening for me. That was a different perspective, like neuroimagining styles of this. So that's why I wanted to ask from law, like, how did you decide it?
Yeah, because I started with bioethical topics more than 20 years ago when I did my doctoral degree. It was more on not on this, but on reproductive technologies, which raises, because I like philosophy also. New technologies raise many philosophical questions, and yes, and after that, after my thesis, so on reproductive technologies, then I moved to other topics, to genetics. I worked a lot on genetics also, genetic privacy. That was a concept. The right not to know one's genetic information, for instance. So many new rights. Cloning, germline gene editing, so genetic engineering in humans, they are so fascinating, and to some extent also scary, scary issues. And the last one is neurotechnologies, where I've been working. So I'm interested in different the issues and intersection of of technologies and human rights, human dignity. This way.
Thank you. I find it very interesting also, and this is so. I'm honored to moderate this session with you because it's also, I don't know why, I don't know why, but I like it, those things, and I wanted to also study law, but I didn't, and I didn't know that I can do this. So your kind of like your service is so valuable to me. And our friends prepared a certificate for you, and we will be transferring this through email. And we're really thankful for your contribution. And as a team, we love to communicate with you.
Thank you.
All of the like mails that we send and you get back, we love them. So thank you for all of the things that you
Thank you.
do
Thank you.
until this time.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you. If you have any questions in the future, you can always send me an email, etc.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Well, bye bye and have a
Bye bye.
nice
Thank
day.
you. You
Bye
too.
bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.